Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through Monday's 7-game slate. Mike, how was your Christmas? How are you feeling on this Monday?
Pretty good. Yeah, fun Christmas. Good time to see the family. My parents are big football fans, so I had to watch on a little TV the basketball stuff. But it's fun. Nice to see my parents and had a good day. How about you?
Nice. It was good. I enjoyed the basketball. Stayed here in New York City. You can see an addition to my background is a gift from my lovely fiance, the Drew Dinkmeyer ETR action figure. That has graced my backdrop now.
Kick
So that's
kick
exciting.
everybody out so everyone can get a better look at it. If you want a big screen, it's so good.
Yeah, it's very strong, very strong. She did a great job. The joke behind it, she's very clever and very funny, but was that she's getting me a bunch of clothes for Christmas and she's going to dress me like a Ken doll was the joke. So
Nice.
she got me an actual Ken doll, which is very
That's
funny.
hilarious.
But it was good. It was good. It's good to be in the city. I love New York, and I have a huge appreciation for it when it's like quiet and calm, and it's just really cool. It's a really special place when it is, and I've had a couple moments like that since I've moved here. So
Did you go
it's
see the
cool.
tree at all this month?
I did not go see the Rockefeller tree or the light show on at Saks this year. I've made it out each of the last 2 years, but this year was a struggle to even get out of the apartment these days.
Yeah, my dad was always big to go see the tree when I was younger. We always would take the train up there
Yeah.
and check it out.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. City's awesome. All right, let's get into these 7 games. Man, I was thinking I'm just looking at the schedule now. I was thinking like, oh, it's Tuesday. I'll have some time to catch up on things. I didn't realize tomorrow's slate is massive. Just the way this week shakes out with stuff. But let's start with the Pelicans tonight. No Herb Jones. Zion is doubtful for reconditioning. Dyson Daniels and Trey Murphy and Larry Nance are all questionable. What are we going to see from New Orleans tonight?
I don't know. They could be really shorthanded. Zion getting downgraded. That seems like he's going to be out with the doubtful tag. Trey Murphy questionable. So we know, I think for sure, Najee Marshall is going to start for Herb. So he's already in the starting lineup. You obviously got Valanciunas and CJ in the lineup. And then I think they would go to Dyson Daniels and start and Najee, those guys together. So if Trey's in, it would be CJ, Dyson Daniels, Trey Murphy, Najee Marshall, and Valanciunas. And then, we'll be seeing elevated minutes from those guys. And if Trey can't go, then, man, you're going to get Garrett Temple in the rotation. You're going to get more minutes out of Devontae Graham, possibly even start him against, smaller-ish backcourt. I think you can get away with it against the Nembhard Halliburton stuff. And then Marshall would pick up the Halliburton matchup there. But, yeah, it's pretty wild how many different iterations are going on here. Could also see Jackson Hayes possibly start too, if they're really just missing everyone.
That one seems Hayes is the one that seems most likely to me if you see Trey out, just because I think they might go that route. Hayes played pretty well last game against Oklahoma City. Ended up taking a bunch of center minutes away from Willie Hernangomez, much to our dismay. But I think they started him last year. It's either him or Dyson Daniels. I think Alvarado is pretty clearly on the bench unless they're missing everybody else. So, but gets really thin here. And the Pacers, are a frisky team. They're coming off a nice win thanks to Tyrese Halliburton in Miami. So this one's pretty interesting, and it's an 8:00 Eastern game. 6 of the 7 games tonight are 8:00 Eastern RB4. So it's once again going to be a pretty tight news slate in terms of getting all the information right around lock, and this has got to be the most important situation. So hopefully we get some clarity beforehand. But my guess is this is going to be like right after that 7:00 lock period. We're going to get the information, and it's going to wreak havoc on the slate. Yeah. All right. Speaking of wreaking havoc on slates, the Miami Heat, Bam Adebayo listed out with illness. Gabe Vincent is questionable. He was listed as available last game, but did not play, was a DMP CD. I saw an article from the Heat Beats on Gabe Vincent in his comeback. I haven't had the chance to read it yet. I've just kind of bookmarked it to start. Jimmy Butler's questionable here. Caleb Martin probable. So once again, a lot of players on the injury report for the Heat. With no Bam Adebayo and no Dwayne Dedmon, they are pretty thin at the center spot. They've leaned on Orlando Robinson in these spots before. What are your thoughts on what we see from the Heat tonight?
Yeah, so Spoelstra mentioned we saw Underdog tweet about the not updating Jimmy Butler. Rolled his ankle in the first quarter, played through it, wasn't right in the third quarter, and then sat out the rest of the game. Gabe Vincent, I mentioned was available, didn't play, and they sat him out. They said they wanted to kind of see how it goes and try to project him out, but if they need to bring him in, they would. So sounds like he's got a chance to play. And then we saw Caleb Martin lose minutes to Haywood Highsmith, and a lot of them returning from injury as well. Spoelstra said Caleb, quote, cooled off on the bench after they sat him, just decided not to bring him back in. So very puzzling there. But I think Jimmy's got a pretty good chance. The ankle wasn't too severe, but it's Jimmy Butler. We saw him miss a long period of time with a knee injury that didn't look bad. So don't have a great read there. Haywood Highsmith would certainly benefit, really, if anybody is out. And then without Bam, as you mentioned, probably going to be a lot of Orlando Robinson, a guy they leaned on pretty heavily when they had to. So he could play a bunch of minutes. And, an interesting matchup against Rudy Gobert. We've seen guys, floor spacing fives, have potential to bomb threes on Rudy. So would be kind of a sneaky good spot for him.
We've also seen teams be really willing to go small against Rudy Gobert. The Clippers and Ty Lue are the most frequent of that group. And we also saw Miami play heavy zone against Rudy Gobert and really make him kind of meaningless in the first game that we took. We know because we took an over on Rudy Gobert that game from a points perspective. And so I'm wondering, how much do you think we see like Caleb Martin or Haywood Highsmith type lineups at the 5 tonight? They do have depth at other positions, specifically guard. If they're getting Gabe Vincent back, you can see in this last game, they didn't play Duncan Robinson or Gabe Vincent, right? And they still had like kind of a tight 9-man. Obviously, you remove Bam, but they played 48 true center minutes against Miles Turner and the Pacers, and that makes a lot of sense. Against Rudy Gobert, your first instinct would be, okay, they got to find 48 center minutes again. But I wonder if they're willing to go small. What are your thoughts on that and how things would look if they did try to do that?
I think they would have Orlando and Jovic handle most of them. So it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be too much. Because I don't think they want to up the minutes of Caleb and those other guys. I think it's possible.
The challenge that they have is their fours are small for fours. So going small for having them play 5 is just really, really small. So I'm in agreement with you. I think we probably see a lot of Orlando Robinson tonight. We probably out of necessity have to see some Jovic would be my guess. I actually think they might start Jovic over Robinson. I think Robinson's minutes matching with Naz Reid are very important because Jovic just does not have any size. And I think this might be a situation where you have to tread a little cautiously, where I think they want to play Robinson the most, but I think it might make sense just because of the way substitution patterns are to start Jovic, but not play him a ton, right? Like start him, but play him the 12 to 16 minutes and try to get, or maybe 18 and try to get Robinson up closer to 30 off the bench is a potential out just because they might be thinking about that matchup with Naz Reid as like, he's actually going to go down to the post and punish some people. So I get, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think this is
makes
a
sense.
Potential head fake situation?
They've started Jovic a couple times and he gets a real short rotation. So I think that makes sense. And man, how down bad is Gobert, right? Like we're like, oh, let's structure our rotation for Naz Reid instead. Like, oh man.
Yeah. I mean, he's just Gobert just, offensively doesn't bring things you have to worry about, right? Like until he starts really dominating people on the boards, and haven't seen a lot of that. So okay. Let's move to the questionable tags. Marvin Bagley is questionable here. And then you had a note on a potential lineup change for Detroit. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So Casey is really frustrated with this third quarter run. That every third quarter they come out and get waxed. And Casey said that they may start a different lineup in the third quarter, and they may even change their starting lineup today. So something we'll keep an eye on there. He likes the two bigs, so I'd be curious to see if this is a Killian Hayes or Jaden Ivey. I would lean Hayes is more likely to being sat. We haven't projected that, and we took it under because there's a little bit of equity that there is a change there. Because Killian's been pretty bad. Ivey's been playing better, so definitely think that there's a chance that they rework this rotation. They've had a couple of days off here, so I think that makes some sense. We got Bagley questionable. That could open up a little bit more minute ceiling, and we'll see. More really higher upside for Sadiq Bey. Curious to see if he would be a candidate to start as well. Maybe just a bigger, kind of a jumbo lineup if it's Boyan and Sadiq.
So who do you think? Do you think Sadiq would be the candidate to start over Killian, or who do you think would? Because basically, Duran is locked in, Ivy's locked in, Bogdanovich is locked in, and Stewart is probably locked in, right? So if they're talking, if they're talking about a lineup change, maybe they talk about Stewart over like Bay over Stewart or something like that. But if it's over Killian, like it's probably not Burks. They seem to like him in the second unit, right? So it's probably Bay either way if they're talking about a change to the starting lineup. Is that your thought process right now?
Yeah, he's got to be the clear candidate, right? Other candidates would be Kevin Knox. I don't think they would go to DL. It seems to be way pushed down. I don't think they would go to Corey Joseph. So, I think he's pretty. Just to be clear, that this is probably a little unlikely, but just something to keep in mind.
Well, it's something to keep in mind just in the sense that, hey, if a coach is thinking about these things and they haven't pulled the trigger on it to start the game, that doesn't mean it's still not a thought process for them. And they're thinking of ways to get away from a situation and into a different situation. So it's been tough to play the game of like trying to find a Detroit guy off the bench to carry some ceiling for DFS purposes, but maybe there's something to Sadiq Bey having more upside than typical tonight, and especially if Marvin Bagley is unable to go, because then he can serve as the backup four almost exclusively and garner all those minutes while still playing some three as well. Okay, Kyle Anderson questionable for Minnesota tonight. We've seen it's been a slow going for Slow-Mo with the back issue. What are your thoughts on his availability tonight?
He's had some time off, right? He was getting close last time. Gets ruled out a little bit closer to tip this time. So I think he's got a decent chance to return. Minutes should be kept in check. He's been dealing with this for a while and then aggravated, I want to say, on the 18th of last week. But I think he's got a good chance to return here.
All right. And how would his return
sort of cut out there? I'd obviously be Austin Rivers kind of going to the bench. They certainly like everybody else, so I'd be pretty surprised if it was any other direction.
I was going to say I've been really impressed with Jaden McDaniels and how he's been able to stay out of foul trouble while guarding kind of the league's best offensive players of late. And that's really, I don't know if his ceiling would be impacted by the return of Kyle Anderson. They've been playing extremely tight rotations, as you can see here. I mean, this is basically a 7-man rotation with like 8 Bryn Forbes minutes before they got into the blowout time period. Obviously, Austin Rivers is the one who probably loses the most, but do you think they keep it really, really tight? Is the upside still for McDaniels like upper 30s, even with Kyle Anderson around?
I think so. I think regardless of matchup and Jimmy Butler, I think he'd get up there a bunch. And should note too, Naz Reid overlap. I've been peppering you guys with trying to up Naz Reid's minutes as a backup to get overlap, and he really gets a bunch today. So that's something I think that I want to watch if Slow-Mo is back. So it's been, hasn't been going great, but hasn't been going like poorly. Naz Reid's just been freaking awesome. He's a little bit quicker. He can make up ground a little bit better. He's fitting as a 4 a little bit after he was really just a straight 5-man.
All right. Seth Curry got the midday downgrade to questionable. Always a bad sign. The Nets are pretty deep these days, as we've been talking about. They've been even like playing 11-man rotations at times. So it feels like a spot where midday downgrade. We're probably not seeing Seth Curry tonight, would be my guess. What are your thoughts on how that impacts the Brooklyn rotation?
Yeah, we saw Seth play pretty well off the bench, according to Jacques Vaughn. He said he gave him great minutes, filling in, getting more run for Joe Harris. So yeah, as you said, kind of next man up there. They're trying to find this quote unquote sweet spot for TJ Warren's minutes, mixing him up and when he gets subbed in and out. But we probably see more Edmund Sumner, possibly more Cam Thomas if they're missing Seth. But yeah, they've just got, and we talked about this before, like Jacques Vaughn will just kind of sub someone in, and if it's going great, just run him out there, and if it's not, he'll just sub somebody else in. He's got a pretty good finger on the pulse here for this rotation, but we don't.
And there's no Joe Harris as well. There's no Joe Harris as well. So the guard spots, the shooting spots are available. Decent chance for Sumner and Cam Thomas to see a little bit more playing time tonight. And no Day'Ron Sharpe, he's on assignment in the G League. So if they have any needs for spillover center minutes, it would probably be Markieff Morris tonight. But Brooklyn just playing really well. Great win against Milwaukee. They have just looked fantastic of late. And does it even matter if they're without a couple sharpshooters? We'll see tonight if they can keep it going in Cleveland.
I should mention too, we saw Royce O'Neal's minutes come down a little bit, and they've been trending down. Vaughn joked that he's going to take Royce O'Neal out to dinner because he was running him into the ground with high minutes, a couple weeks ago before he had the personal time away. But I expect him to play a little bit more. I have to look at her minutes, but I would probably put him like low 30s. He should have just not super ceilings.
In terms of midday upgrades, we got one from the Bulls with Javonte Green, who was listed as, I'm not sure if he was listed as doubt or outful, but he got upgraded to questionable. They're still going to be without Alex Caruso. They've got Derek Jones Jr. listed as doubtful as well. So we've seen the Bulls playing tighter in the second unit a little bit without some of these reserve players available. They went straight 8-man against the Knicks. And we also saw for the first time all season, I believe, Andre Drummond and Nikola Vucevic have some overlap. You can see they combined for 59 minutes. So that's 11 minutes of shared court time between the two of them tonight. I imagine all of that goes away if Javonte Green is available, and a midday questionable upgrade is a good sign for Javonte Green. What are your thoughts on how that impacts the Bulls' minutes and if we see him tonight?
Yeah, on top of what you said, just a little bit of lost ceiling for Patrick Williams. We saw him get 37 minutes and still not cash our over. Got hooked on that one, but pretty straightforward. And I should add, right. I think because we saw Drummond completely go away, a couple games ago. I think that not having Derek Jones Jr. I think still makes him, the backup Vooch, but the overlap wouldn't be there.
Yeah. So the expectation there would be essentially Patrick Williams' ceiling comes down a little bit. The ceiling for Dosunmu and Kobe White and those guys also comes down a little bit, I think. I would guess that they could choose to mix to keep that in this matchup against Houston because Houston's a little bit smaller and they could go to some of the Javonte Green center minutes in the second unit if they wanted to. But the ceiling on all these guys, Ayo, Kobe, Goran Dragic, Patrick Williams, is all impacted by Javonte Green potentially being back because any minutes he plays are not coming from Vucevic, DeRozan, Levine, right? Mm-hmm. So it's all coming from the other guys. Mm-hmm. Okay. Other injury notes to continue to work through. Aaron Nesmith and Jalen Smith, both on the injury report for Indiana. They're both listed as questionable. Obviously, these are the two guys who have been interchangeably starting at that 4 spot for Indiana. So if they were without both of them, you could see some lineup combinations that we haven't seen as much of. You saw last game, Benny Mathurin slid into the starting lineup against a Heat team that's a little bit smaller on the whole. What are your thoughts on how the health status of Nesmith and Jalen Smith impacts Indiana's lineup decisions against New Orleans tonight?
I think they got a pretty good chance to return Nesmith, that is. So we'll see. They like starting him, so he would get back in the starting lineup, push Benny Mathurin back to the bench. And then we saw Smith. It's kind of just I guess a cautious tag, but we saw O'Shea Brissett really step up. He came off the bench, but pretty impactful defensively. The minutes weren't very good, like minus 14, but Rick Carlisle shouted him out unprompted to give him some good minutes.
Yeah, and it seems like Isaiah Jackson is, no longer a thing. Is Jalen Smith just a center now? Like, we haven't seen Isaiah Jackson play in a week. It's a week from last Sunday was the last time he played. So if Jalen Smith is just considered a backup center now, essentially because of how well O'Shea Brissett and Aaron Nesmith have played in the return of Chris Duarte, the potential loss of him tonight, if he was out, he's questionable. We think it's a light Q tag, would bring Isaiah Jackson back into the mix, would be my guess. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hornets, Dennis Smith Jr. questionable. Our guy Nick Richards, doubtful. Nick Richards has been so good this year in that backup center role for Charlotte. We've also seen Charlotte when they're healthy, which healthy means having LaMelo, having Terry Rozier, having Gordon Hayward. They've been willing to play these PJ Washington at the center lineups that allow them to get kind of their 5 best players on the floor. With no Nick Richards, I think there's a chance that we see even more of those lineups tonight because the backup centers there, they could use Kai Jones, they could use Mark Williams. They haven't been excited to use those guys a ton. How do you think the absence of Nick Richards and potentially Dennis Smith Jr.? I think Dennis Smith Jr. is pretty simple. It's just like him or Maladon are taking those minutes. Maybe they have a little bit more confidence in DSJ to overlap a little bit more. But what are your thoughts on the absence of Nick Richards, what that means for Charlotte tonight?
Yeah, just with DSJ real quick. Yeah, I mean, they're basically the same thing. So we took a Rozier over just because we don't think it's going to affect him at all. But yeah, so a couple games ago when they played the Clippers, they had a really interesting rotation change when they subbed out Plumlee and played PJ as the 5 without fouls. This was like scripted, and that was puzzling. So I think they'll obviously stick with that. Like, probably not going to look to too much of the Kai Jones, Mark Williams, and those guys. I think that there may be some minutes. I think Kai Jones has been like subbing in as a 4, so they might actually for once bring Mark Williams into the mix here, or they could rework it. They could bring JT Thor. It's pretty dicey how it's going to play out. Good.
It's a good opportunity to get Mark Williams some low key minutes. So I could see. The way that I'm kind of thinking that they'll do this is I think they'll probably have, whether it's Kai Jones or Mark Williams, I think they'll probably have that guy play like 8 to 10 minutes, almost entirely against Eubanks as much as they can. And because Nurk has been a little limited as well, obviously if there's foul trouble on Plumlee, that they're going to need the size of one of these guys to play a little bit more, but then get the PJ Washington center minutes against Eubanks as much as they can as well. Have Plumlee kind of match Nurk would be my guess. And you could see just really elevated minutes from Washington, Hayward, LaMelo Ball, Rozier, and Oubre tonight. Like I could see all of those guys playing 30 plus. Would not surprise me. Okay, on to the doubtfuls and outs. Kawhi Leonard is out tonight for the Clippers. We've been excited about the Clippers starting to play better, and here we go again with Kawhi Leonard out. How do things look for them in his absence?
Yeah, just a back-to-back. So this is pretty much – we talked about this last week when we were talking Clippers and title Coach of the Year, that this is a pretty obvious rest spot there. So they've been going to like a mixture of guys. I wouldn't be surprised if they just start Luke Kennard and just go that way and play more minutes. They've been talking about how he gets more shots. You don't need an extra defender. So he would benefit. They also go to Terrence Mann.
It's also a revenge game for Luke Kennard.
Oh yeah, revenge game. Yeah. So and we've also seen them start Batum. I don't have a great read on who starts for Kawhi here, but we know that we're going to see a lot of Paul George. He was my matchups cover boy today. We love attacking Pistons with guards and perimeter guys. We've seen some pick and roll game with Paul George. I expect a big game out of him today. But Ty was really tough to predict. Sitting Kawhi and having pretty much everyone else ready to go.
We talked about no Joe Harris for Brooklyn. Let's talk about no Kelly Olynyk for Utah. We've seen without Kelly Olynyk, like Walker Kessler has played really well. Jared Vanderbilt, they've been willing to start them together and do that quick sub. I do think it's interesting that the first sub last time was not Malik Beasley. It was Colin Sexton, as they're trying to work Sexton back in. Sexton still only played like 17 minutes, but he was the first sub off the bench, had 17 minutes. I think that's a good sign generally for like getting him back on his feet. I think it'll eventually take away from Nickeil Alexander-Walker a little bit more, but it's clear they're going to continue to start big and quickly shift off it to spread out Vanderbilt and Kessler's minutes as much as they can. You see them generally overlapping for about 10 to 12 minutes here. What are your thoughts on the Jazz without Kelly Olynyk once again?
Yeah, Walker Kessler, man, like a lot more screen and roll game. That was like a really big, almost staple of their offense against the Wizards. They really, they utilized him way more.
The scouting report is out in the NBA. If Daniel Gafford is the starting center, you just run screen roll all day long. It's very out. No matter who you have, you can run it.
Yeah, we're just a couple of dorks who like to play fantasy, and like we know this. So yeah, for sure. He's been great. He's been great though. Like he's not going to get rookie of the year pub, but I could see him making a run at like first team all rookie. He's been playing awesome lately. That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to Portland, where probables tags for Yusuf Nurkic and Josh Hart. Fan has been upset with the Portland probable tags. Do you think there's anything to them today?
So I do want to talk about Nurk real quick because his minutes were real short. I think he had like a 5 minute rotation or something. It was something, 5 to 7, whatever it was. And I talked about this. This is the third right calf injury he's had in his career. One in 2018, one in 2021, and then this one. So I think he'll be ramped up a little bit. We saw a little bit longer rotation in the third quarter, so I think he may be closer to full minutes. He fouled out in I think it was late third. But yeah, I would expect him to be, almost full. Probably not quite full yet though. And then Hart's
Yeah, I
fine.
think Nurk fouled out with like 7 minutes left in this game in the fourth quarter. But he had just come back in like a minute or two later. So if he had played the full stint, the full like 8 in a row, he would have gotten to 28 minutes or so, which is what you're saying. Like that's just shy of kind of like full Nurk. I think full Nurk is like 29 to 31 type range. But it was weird, the stints. Like it was very short stints followed by a very long stint. I don't know what that's about. But it's something certainly to keep an eye on for Portland. And then the other lineup change situation you want to talk about was Lamar Stevens. We saw his return and Isaac Okoro stay in the starting lineup. Cavs are playing generally pretty well of late. What are your thoughts on Isaac Okoro or Lamar Stevens in the matchup tonight with Brooklyn? And whoever will draw what I think would be the Kevin Durant assignment. They might give Mobley that, but I think it could be one of these two guys. What are your thoughts on Okoro or Stevens tonight?
Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised if it's not Stevens. We saw him come off the bench in the last game. I think it was more of a management thing. Bickerstaff didn't really give too much light on that situation. He was really just upset with how poorly they played, just getting gouged from 3-point range by the Raptors. But I'd be really surprised if it's not Stevens. I have to check for starters jerseys right now, so I'll see if I can find some information out. What do you think that? It seems like such a Stevens spot to put him in there.
It does. So I think the question is, would they consider Okoro's, like, what do they consider more valuable, and how do they intend to defend Kevin Durant? If their intentions to defend Kevin Durant are largely through Evan Mobley, then maybe it is Okoro because they can put Okoro on Kyrie in that situation. But my guess is that they prefer to have Lamar Stevens guard Kevin Durant. They seem to like, whether it's Lamar Stevens, whether it's Dean Wade, they seem to like those options against Kevin Durant and let Mobley roam a little bit more and help them on the glass. So I think that's the way that they go. But if they don't, I think the whole reason that they'd be doing that is because they're more concerned about ways to guard Kyrie with Mitchell and Garland versus ways to guard Kevin Durant with Mobley. My guess is Durant gets the primary attention here and Stevens starts.
Yep. And Danny Cunningham, one of their beats, he says that Lamar had the starter jersey on. So
there we go.
We got it. No picture. We love the pictures, but shout out to Danny.
All right. That will do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, support the people who are supporting us. This show is brought to you by our good friends over at Underdog Fantasy. They have daily NBA snake drafts running for money in addition to many NFL formats running for huge cash prizes, including those playoff formats. I sadly will not be advancing to any of the BBM finals. I had 18 across different platforms, 18 best ball teams in the semis this weekend, and I'm going to advance one. Just very disappointing weekend for me. All my good teams that got knocked out and finished second the week before would have been great this week. It was just like a combination of very frustrating things for my best ball season. But the playoffs are ahead. There's more tournaments. There's more contests. So head on over to Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code ETR for a matching deposit bonus up to $100. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, it's promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. And also, as a reminder, if you're interested in checking out Established Run's premium DFS products, we are running a holiday sale on both the NFL and NBA DFS products. The NBA DFS products are running at a 33% discount, monthly and weekly passes. Those will recur at those discounted price tags for the rest of the season. So you're getting a discounted price not just for this 1 month, not just for this 1 week, but for the rest of the season. You save 33% there. You can check us out. Myself and Gary Hartman will be behind the paywall today at 5 o'clock Eastern, breaking down this 7-game slate from a DFS perspective. Mike's matchups column, which he graced the loyal subscribers with 2 matchups columns in 2 days over the weekend. The matchups column is live on the site.
I cut some corners. Well. I listed great matchup, good matchup, bad matchup, but
the people love it. The people love it. The people need it. As always, if you are uninterested in supporting us with your hard-earned dollars, we'd love it if you supported us with your hard-earned clicks. You can subscribe to his YouTube page, get notifications whenever we go live. You can also smash that like button and help circulate our content and help us feed the algorithm, which can help you and us feed ourselves with DFS, with props, with your clicks, and keep us happy and stuffed this holiday season. All right, we will see everybody tomorrow. Enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy the leftovers. Nom, 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 nom. Take care, everybody.